You are now listening to Bull Hook Golf, an unfiltered golf podcast taking you inside the ropes with unfiltered stories, insights, analysis, and exclusive interviews. Welcome back, everybody, to Bull Hook Golf, the podcast. This is episode number 57, and man, do we have a title for this one. Good old Rahmbo wins the Masters. How exciting was that? John Rahm wins the Masters. We're also going to be diving in and talking about the 3 LIV golfers who happen to finish in the top 5. What does this mean for the world of golf? If it means anything, we'll cover that. And then we've got a nice little analysis of the upcoming RBC Heritage and much, much more. So without further ado, let's dive right in, Bobby. We've got our Masters recap with good old Rahmbo winning the 2023 Masters. How awesome was that?
What an impressive performance. I mean, literally my whole week was, I said it last week, I hate not being at the Masters, being involved in caddying there because it's just something special. But man, I don't think I missed a shot for 4 days. Don't you just love it? There's like 8 different screens that you can watch.
Can't stop.
And then afterward, Masters on the Range, whatever it is, the feature groups. Is there a better website? Is there a better app for a golf tournament than Augusta? I literally, you can watch everybody's shot hole by hole, right? So I knew Sung Jae was struggling, so I was watching Sung Jae. He was kind of had the double barrel miss going off the tee, and we were actually, private information. We were sharing some texts and that kind of stuff. He does have a coach in Korea. I wouldn't classify myself as a coach or anything like that, but I do know his move pretty good. And we're talking about some things, off the record that maybe he was doing with the driver. He was asking me what I was seeing and that kind of stuff. No, I did not get a bonus out of it. He ended up coming from behind and finishing 16th. But he really said he really drove it poorly for him. But a little off track as usual I am. But man,
okay.
Yeah, it's just so fun. I mean, it's just 10 hours of me watching golf and going, oh, I know what this does. I know what that does. How's he going to hit this shot? And what are the conditions like? And it's just crushing when they go to those rain delays. It like just fucks my whole day up. And I'm like, God, what am I going to do now? It's 3:45 and they just called play. I was supposed to be watching this till 7 p.m.
Luckily, I had the weekend where I just booked out golf. So I knew the rain was coming because you and I talked about it on the last podcast. Sure. So everybody was aware of the weather, of what was going to take place. And everybody was asking me, hey, do you think, are we going to miss any of the Masters if we go out at such and such time? Like, no. I was like, they're going to call play. It's going to be done and over with. So let's go ahead, get these rounds of golf in. And I mean, you are absolutely right. It wouldn't be something from Augusta National if it wasn't perfect. And that Masters app is just about damn near perfect.
They just have it completely wired. It's so funny. I was listening to on social media. I was reading about all the LIV haters or I assume they were LIV haters talking about how bad the PGA Tour app is. And I'm like, well, I think the LIV app is, or the LIV website, whatever you call it. I don't even think they have an app. Do they have an app?
They do. They've got the LIV Golf Plus app. So they took a moniker from Apple Plus. And that's how you can watch the event. But the problem with that one is there's no leaderboards in there. So you have to go out to livegolf.com to go see the leaderboards. It's clunky. It's not the greatest. But at the same time, I mean, the PGA Tour app isn't the greatest either. But man, the Masters, everybody take note. The Masters app is phenomenal. Whoever developed that for them, great work.
Yeah. We only have to wait like 340 some days until we get to go on it again, bro.
I was going to ask this to you later on, but is Monday after the Masters the most depressing day?
Isn't it though?
It is.
It's depressing. It's like, oh, it's over with now. And, even though it's not too depressing for me because, we're right down, we swing right into another elevated event. I guess I'd call it a designated event here in Hilton Head, which is a little under 2 hours from my house. So my little boys and Lori, who teaches, it's spring break. So every year we make a week of it down here. It's a family vacation. So you pack up on, after a great Easter, you pack up on Monday morning and get the troops down here and kind of get organized. It was blowing 30 miles an hour and quite chilly out here, so nobody really did anything at the golf course. But it's great because I take my little boys drive with me, and it's the only tournament of the year that and they go to, because they know dad's a caddy and they've seen dad randomly on TV or social media stuff or that kind of stuff, but it doesn't really, connect with them on what I really do. But they come to the golf course with me every Monday. I go and register. I go and organize some stuff in Troy's locker. This year, I actually had to run an errand. A gentleman who makes our yardage books, Mark Long, who does all of our yardage books on tour, he had shipped them to somebody in Charleston, and that person wasn't going to be able to make it down here on Monday. So I had to deliver all the yardage books, but they got to go in the locker room and they go into the caddy tent with me, and they realize, they're like, oh, Dad is, how do I say this?
That's a big deal.
Kind of someone. Dad is kind of someone, because I can't take 20 steps without shooting the shit and getting to introduce them to players and caddies and reps and agents and that kind of stuff. So, and then they love all the free food. They're just like Dad. They love all the free food inside caddy hospitality. They seem to migrate towards the cookies and the brownies and the M&Ms and salt and vinegar chips. But yeah, Monday for me is great, but Monday for me, on the other hand, too, is just like you said. It's like, oh man. Well, it's not that bad that we're on to Hilton Head, but there ain't nothing like the Masters. But his performance was just, incredible.
It was rock solid.
Oh my God, the cream just rises. He just rises to the top. Wouldn't we love to see? And I'm going to leave him and still leave Rory in there. But wouldn't we love to see Scotty Scheffler and John Rahm and Rory, have their A+ game, and what about somebody like Dustin or Brooks Koepka or something like that? We throw those guys in with their A+ game, and who is definitely the best player in the world? To me, if they all have their A+ game, I think it's still John, right? I just think it's John. He played a flawless round of golf on Sunday. Man, he's so experienced now with the lead too. He hits into the fat part of the green, right? He hits. It's easy to do when you're executing and you're firing on all cylinders, but it's not that easy to do, so to speak, too. But he's just so experienced, and he's the best player in the world right now. He was last week for sure. Against the best players in the world. I mean, it's only an 80. Well, what they had a couple W. First casualty was Kevin Na, not feeling good. Yeah,
a little bit of the shits there, no?
Yeah, well, yeah, he was fucking a little bit of the shits. He was 5 or 6 over right off the bat. It's funny, he was one of the earlier groups through when you can watch that early coverage, and I wouldn't call it featured group coverage, but they'll pick up the first ones right off the bat, I guess, starting on like number 3, 4. Well, they do like 3, 4, and 5, or 4, 5, and 6, or something like that. And I saw I've been paired with him numerous times before. Can I tell you a story? He was not fucking sick. He fucking quit, right? He's got too much money. He wasn't having any fun. He wasn't having any fun out there whatsoever. I'll tell you a story about Kevin Na in about 2011 or 2012 at Atlanta at the Tour Championship. He could hardly walk. He could hardly swing the club, but he wasn't going to miss the Tour Championship. He's hitting these little cut drivers out there about 210 or 220. And he actually beat Dustin that day. I think he shot 1 under, just grinding, not hitting it anywhere. And Kevin Na is anything but a quitter on the golf course, right? I mean, he made a 17 or an 18 on that one hole in San Antonio that one year, and he refused to quit. But now, my theory is you get a pocket full of money, and you're not having any fun out there, and you don't want to embarrass yourself, and it's just easy to quit. And Louis Oosthuizen ended up WDing too. Listen, I know he only had a few holes left to play to come back in the rain delay, and he wasn't going to make the cut and that kind of stuff. But to me, I think it's Augusta National. You have to be respectful, and I would think that you would come back and finish those holes.
I agree.
So that's all I'm going to say about that. I just felt like they just quit because they have too much money. You agree with that?
I do in a lot of ways, because money does change people. And it doesn't change everybody. And you could tell that, for instance, guys like Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson, going to Patrick Reed. Patrick Reed hasn't had the best year. Phil hasn't had the best year. But those guys are former champions of Augusta National. And there's something to be said about having knowledge and experience out there and knowing how to win at Augusta National.
I'm just going to personally, when I make predictions and that kind of stuff, I firmly believe in my predictions, but I'm going to tell you, I couldn't have been more way off base with those LIV guys, but chirping that only DJ or Cam Smith were the guys that were going to win. Obviously we have a healthy Brooks Koepka, who in quotation marks caught the dream wave, right? There was a big separation in waves and weather and that kind of stuff. And I don't know how I wouldn't even put lefty in the mix after playing there 20 some times and winning three times. And I'll tell you, I'll share a little tidbit of information with you about lefty. So one of the years when we went to Augusta early, we flew, I told you we flew on Phil's plane and flew back, and we spent a day there with him. Well, he invited us into the champions locker room, and we had, oh my God, who was the chairman of Augusta before Mr. Ridley? I can't remember his name, but got to sit down and have breakfast with him in the champions locker room when we were out there on the golf course. And Phil kept talking about this magic book that he had been compiling for years, and he wouldn't show any of us it, and I had only done a few masters, and I had showed him, and I'm like, look what I've been writing down. He goes, oh, you're doing it the right way. Right. And he showed me a quick page of his book, and he has 20 some years of every putt or every chip noted in this book. And he knows exactly where to miss there. He does not drive it straight. You've been there before. There are 80% of those fairways are wide open fairways, right? You get to like 7 and 17, possibly 14. A few of them are a little bit tight, but you can kind of hit it, I wouldn't say all over and get away with it, but you can have a big miss there and find something. So I am taking it back. I disrespected Phil. I disrespected Brooks, and I shouldn't have done anything like that, because those guys are just world-class players, and obviously we're dealing with a healthy Brooks Koepka here.
I tried last week, Bobby. I put it in the notes. Is Brooks Koepka back? Because
I shut it down.
He won 2 events, and I know that they were spread out over a period of time, but he still won 2 events, and you still have some of the best players in the world over on LIV Golf. And so for me, coming in, Brooks Koepka, and a healthy Brooks Koepka, one that is in form. You can tell that like he was the Brooks Koepka of old. But what's kind of interesting, which I laugh at it, but it has to have some type of role of only playing 54 hole events. And then you get to Augusta National playing the Masters, and you've got 72 holes. Yeah. Brooks faded in that final round. Don't call it a coincidence, but he was perfectly in form for 3 rounds, and then he wasn't. And so for me, there's got to play a little bit of a role. Now, granted, the pundits will come back and say, well, look at Phil Mickelson, look at Patrick Reed. They came through on that Sunday. They were coming from behind. They had nothing to lose from how they were playing, right? They were never going to catch the leader, in my opinion, because either Rahm or Koepka were going to stay right up there at the top. But with the LIV golfers, I felt like it was a good thing for them to finish that way, to have 3 guys in the top 5. Yeah. It added some credence to the entire thing, to where now I feel like the talk isn't going to be around the fact that all these guys are washed up, right? But Augusta National is one of those golf courses to where you don't necessarily have to be in form. And if you know a lot about the golf course and you know how to play well there, you've got an opportunity to play well there. I mean, Jack Nicklaus won late into his life. 46 years old he was when he won.
1986 or something. One of the greatest calls of ever on golf when they came on the air. I think it was somebody, I don't know if it was Jim, I think it was Jim Nance's, like before the Cup, right when he came on, and you're not going to believe this, right? And he starts making all those putts and everything like that. So it's a big time experience golf course, and anybody that's been playing there forever is definitely going to have the upper hand, because you know in certain conditions whether you can bump this into the hill, or if this won't take a bump, or how this putt can get away from you at 4 p.m. and it doesn't get away from you at 9:30 a.m. And those are all things that you just put in your memory bank, and you see year after year after year. So it was awesome to see the LIV guys in the mix for sure. It was awesome, like I mentioned last week, to see everybody kind of bro hugging on the range. Like, man, I haven't seen you. How are you? Let's just put all of our difference aside for 1 week out of respect, because this is the Masters and we all deserve to be knocking heads against each other. And we know who came on top, and it wasn't a LIV player. No,
but John Rahm played masterful golf. Yeah. I mean, I'm watching him in that final round going, he's going to win, even though he was 2 back. You sat there and you're like, so me and you were texting. You're like, I asked you who you had.
Yeah.
You're like, Rahm. I was like, I went all in on Hovland because I thought Hovland, after finishing up with 5 birdies on the back 9, and then you have already played the back 9 that day, you're in form. Like, I thought he was going to all of a sudden parlay that right into the next round. Granted, I always root for an underdog, but John Rahm, you said it best. He played to the center of the greens and played super conservatively, just really waiting for Koepka to fall apart. And Koepka did. And he just kept that pressure on.
If there's ever an angle there, besides experience, it's a bomber that hits a little bit of a cut, right? John Rahm, it's a bomber that hits a little bit of a cut. Scotty Scheffler is a bomber that hits a little bit of a cut. Brooks Koepka is a bomber that hits a little bit of a cut. Phil can kind of hit it anywhere, you know what I mean? But I mean, I think he prefers when he hammers one, it's a little bit of a draw. And for a lefty, that would, that's like hitting a little bit of a cut, obviously, if you're a righty. So that's a little bit of an angle there too, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Patrick Reed, I mean, he just
he
that little
good.
draw.
I mean, I dished on him, and I feel, I'll never feel a horrible dishing on him just because of he's won there. He's got a ton of experience there. He briefly went to college there for a while after he got booted from Georgia. And he, I was reading, it's funny, I think he went out on his Monday practice round and played. He's the only one that went out there and played by himself, right? So he's got no wins, other than the other 3 aces that he plays with 14 other weeks out of the year. But it's funny. I didn't even get into, I was reading some social media stuff because the LIV guys were going to have a field day with some of those LIV social media guys with their guys in contention, that kind of stuff. But I did read something today that LIV had 18 players in the field and PGA Tour or amateurs and everybody else combined there were 70, but if you broke them into a LIV group and into a PGA Tour status group, the scoring average came out, believe it or not, 72, a little over 72 for the LIV guys, right? And a little over 70, I think it was 70.69 for the PGA Tour guys. So, not that means anything, but you get your few of your LIV guys, and if they get it going with their experience, they're going to have something to say about every major that they play in. I agree. I think they will for sure.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the players that really let us down. I mean, we've got 4 in particular. For me, it was Dustin Johnson, Cam Smith, Rory McIlroy, and Justin Thomas. Those were the 4 that I'm just like, you could tell DJ wasn't in his form. If he was, he would have played better than that. Cam Smith, you could tell, was completely out of form, and yet he's such a good putter. The putter saved him so often. And then you've got Rory McIlroy. What the hell happened? And Justin Thomas.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with Rory, right? He's obviously he's having driver issues, right? He's having driver issues, and it's not a knock on TaylorMade, but they're tweaking around and doing things to different drivers and that kind of stuff. And these guys, when they find a driver they keep it forever, right? Until it breaks or gets, because a lot of people don't know these drivers, that face starts thinning and it gets hotter and hotter and hotter. And it probably gets to a point, I saw an official doing it today, but they'll randomly out here, they'll grab 5 or 6 guys as drivers every week and they go test them, right? To make sure that they're legal. So there's always checks and balances going on. But obviously he was, he got behind the 8 ball early at 2 or 3 over. Looked like, I think he fought it back on Thursday and actually got it to 1 under par and then bogeyed 18 to finish even, which wasn't going to kill him, that's for sure. But, if the driver is his game, right? If he's driving it in play, he is one of the best players in the world. And if he's driving it sideways or doesn't have any confidence in it, he probably starts manipulating it. I never really see him. Gosh, as many times I've paired with him, man, I never see him hit a little chippy fairway finder, like some guys can hit a chippy fairway finder. It's
all full go.
It's a full bore. So he was a huge disappointment. Dustin, I will get back to my angle that you know what I was talking shit about most of those LIV guys before, that I just thought that there was a little bit of, they weren't just ready to go like they've been in previous Masters leading up with a certain schedule. And I mean, who knows how much money Dustin got, but that probably had something to do with it, man. He probably wasn't grinding like the old Dustin Johnson that won in 2020 and had all those great finishes in years previous
I
to
keep saying it. He's thick, Bobby. He's thick
somebody
right now.
else was
Man.
saying that on social media too. They're like, it looks like he's game. I couldn't really tell, because
He's got a gut going.
let's be honest. They didn't, CBS released a statement that they were going to, everybody was going to show up how they showed up on TV, that kind of stuff. But there was a big kibosh against the LIV guys. You never fucking saw Dustin hit hardly any shots. If Brooks didn't get it going, Brooks was the only one they really showed. They never showed Patrick Reed, maybe once or twice, right? They never showed Cam Smith, but maybe once or twice that I
think
remember.
On Thursday, they showed him once or twice.
So they were kiboshing the LIV guys. And Cam admittedly was off form. He grinded to make the cut and was hanging at 2 or 3 under and didn't make much happen. Who was the other one that you mentioned? You mentioned somebody else that was a big disappointment. Rory?
Justin Thomas.
Yeah. So oh, man, maybe he just needs to zip it a little bit and go out there and play golf. I feel like we discussed this before. I feel like maybe he's feeling pressure and Bones is feeling pressure because every week they tee it up, they're supposed to win, right? He's supposed to be the guy that's supposed to win. And he just, man, for as talented as he is, I just don't think he's won as much as he's should have won. I was shocked that these guys did the on-course thing in the ear and talked during the Masters.
Yeah,
right?
Max Homa, you had McIlroy.
And you had Justin Thomas do it, and he made that.
Yeah.
McIlroy and Justin Thomas made comments earlier when that started at Torrey Pines. They're like, I'm going to stay away from that. But they ended up, obviously I could see how Rory would do it because he's like the face of the PGA Tour, and maybe it's better for the PGA Tour, or I wouldn't say building the game, but people want those insights. But for me as a caddy, I mean, that just feels like, for that one quick minute or something, you get out of your little focus and you're hitting a shot really, and you're talking to your caddy when everybody can hear everything. There's something that I'm not comfortable with that. And then, Justin Thomas, when he put it on, that was like the kiss of death. He made a bunch of bogeys right after that to end up missing the cut. So we'll see how it goes with him and that kind of stuff. There's been talk, I'm friends with the previous caddy of his, Jimmy Johnson, who he won a ton of tournaments with before Bones. And you just got this feeling that, and I don't know this from the inside or anything like that. I'm sure Justin Thomas doesn't listen to this podcast, nor anybody in his posse or his clique does. But the fact is, that Jimmy's like, hey man, the dad just, what if the kid went and saw Butch Harmon or something like that? I guess that's what I'm getting at. I would love to, that would probably never happen because blood is thicker than water and his dad's been his only coach. But you can't help but think, or me personally can't think that, God, like maybe there is something that Justin Thomas is not doing right that maybe Butch can fix or something like that. But maybe I'm just grabbing at stuff. But he is,
No, we love Butch. I mean, there's nobody like Butch.
We're anti-Claude and we're pro-Butch.
That's pretry much
it.
I
mean, one Harmon and we don't like the other one. And I was kind of, I've seen the evolution of Brooks over the years, from going way back to Muirfield when he was kind of nobody and he was Dustin's partner in a Tuesday game. He never cut Dustin once, but you could tell he was going to be some kind of player. But he recently went back to Claude too. So that was one reason for me not to root for him, because he went back to Claude because, Claude, Claude loves him some Claude. Let's put it that way. Claude loves him some Claude. And I think that, if Brooks wins and I don't know how that would affect, can't be easy for Claude to juggle those two egos, Brooks Koepka here on the range and Dustin Johnson here on the range. How do you work with both guys equally? Not that Claude does anything for these big time players. They don't need much, and Brooks has flown in sneaky and taken some oil, quick oil change from Butchie in Vegas too. Brooks has. So, I would never say, I'm glad somebody didn't win, but I wasn't fucking rooting for him. That's for sure. I was not rooting for him to win. Plus, I didn't want to see his chick, Jana Sims, get fucking run out there on the 18th green. We saw enough of that with Paulina a couple years back. And nobody saw more than me because she almost fucking took me out running across that screen. I think she was coming at me to level me anyway. So Dawson happened to get in the way for the big hug. But, some of these some of these chicks to me aren't that, I've said it before, just aren't that genuine, and they're all in there. They're all there for me. I saw her doing some interview with some social media influencer, Claire Rogers. Never heard of this Claire Rogers bitch before in my life. And I'm like, oh my God. And then they show the par three contest. And I'm like, how much makeup do these girls, well, between Paulina and her out there in that 90 degrees, I'm like, oh my God,
they're melting. They're
melting
away.
Melting. They were literally melting. It's like their big day in the sun, you know? So, anyways, shit talking Bob, back at it again.
Well, this is what I love about having this podcast and being able to break this all down, because we get the real insights from you, Bobby. And here's the thing. Yeah. In hindsight, Brooks made some comments about the fact that, you know, if I knew I could get back to this level, I wouldn't have left for LIV Golf.
Well, he's, there's been rumblings that he's, missing this. And I would think, man, I would definitely think that after last week that he's definitely missing this, because he flat out said, I miss mixing it up with Rory and Scotty Scheffler and John Rahm, right? He's like, I fucking go to these events 14 times a year, and, and I got 5 guys to beat, out here I got 55 guys to beat. So, I'm sure, who knows what the future is going to hold with Brooks. But, they did that. Alex Michelli, we both read that article where Alex Michelli dug up that if they do null and void their contract and want to go back to the PGA Tour, which they're probably not going to be welcome at this point anyways, they have to pay 3 or 4 times of what their contract was, their guaranteed money. And I don't think any of those guys, the way that they and their better half spend money, that they're shelling out $300 or $400 million to come play in, $8 to $20 million purses.
No chance.
But
absolutely,
he's got to miss it, because he's a fucking fierce, he's a fierce competitor. Hey,
that's what I appreciate about Brooks.
Yeah, and I do, and I respect that. But my whole thing when I start trashing these guys is I remember when they were cool guys, right? I remember when they were fucking cool, down to earth guys, and then all of a sudden now you're fucking. You win 4 fucking majors and you're best golfer in 2 years, and you think you're Bo Jackson or something like that, or just some of these mega fucking athletes. And honestly, I know they're great athletes and that kind of stuff, but I'm pretty sure Dustin Johnson or Brooks Koepka weren't going to make this kind of money and with living. I'm sure they weren't going to play at a professional level and any other sport. Let's just put it that way. End of story on that for me.
Now, as a caddy, should Brooks have been penalized for his caddy yelling out to Gary Woodland's caddy, come on in on this?
I know those guys, man. I know those guys good. I know Butchie really, really, really.
You saw it. I mean,
I know Ricky really, really good.
It was so ridiculously obvious what he said to him. I don't even want to
fucking go there. Can I just say
I'm putting you on the spot. You can't plead the fifth. This isn't court.
I've done it before. If it's my
everybody has.
I'm the tell that, and I'm not just, listen, a buddy of ours named Chris Jones, Crispy, was working for Mark Wilson years ago at the Honda, right? And he was paired with Camilo Villegas. So Mark Wilson ended up winning that year. But they were on a par 3, and Mark Wilson hit some kind of a hybrid, right? And Camilo mumbled to Butchie, I think was actually his caddy at the time, of all things. Butchie said, I think that's a 16 degree or 18 degree. And Crispy turned around and just didn't even think he was breaking a rule and said, it's an 18 degree or something like that. They caught it on tape. And Mark gets penalized 2 shots. He ends up winning a playoff over Camilo anyway. So that got us all got us all paranoid about, sharing information. To me, they still got to execute the shot. We all can tell, we are 90% sure of what somebody is hitting, but we all go and look in the bag, But I have been paired with my buddies before where they're staring at me in that same scenario, and I'll flash, or wedge, I'll flash or something like that, or I'll look at him and I'll say, just like he did, like 5 or something like that. But it was, man, honestly, my take on that was, I think they were telling him what they hit. Now the Brooks glove thing, I played it down, and Ricky's to me was obvious that he was looking. Brandon was turning around, Butchie was turning around and looking right at him, right? Yeah. And it was quite obvious to me that listen, I've been inside the ropes fucking 50 or 60 rounds in Augusta, right? There's whoever came up with this thing that there's spotters following you and they want clubs and that kind of stuff. That's bullshit, right? There's no spotters that wants clubs. It's TV that wants clubs, and one of my best friends works for CBS Sports. His name is Parker, right? He's long. You might have seen him accidentally on the tube. He's a long blonde hair kind of surfer guy, lives in Charleston. This guy's so good at his job is that he's flat, and they want it before you hit the shot for TV, not afterwards. They want it before so they can relate.
Do you ever lie to them about what club so that your player gets a little bit more ego out of it?
You mean to another caddy?
No, to the TV. So you're like, he's hitting 8 iron even though he's hitting 7.
No, because I will tell you one thing. This Parker guy is so good. After he gets the number, he flashes you what you think you're going to hit, and he is right 99 times out of 100. Like, he'll give you the 3, and you just kind of give him a head nod. But there's nobody inside the ropes, after a shot, that you are flashing or telling you. So to me, it was obvious that they were sharing information. And when Brooks went like this, he can say that, because you saw that they called him back in the next day on Friday to blow up on social media. And and here's the dick in Brooks. Oh, I guess you can't take your glove off. You're supposed to take your glove off with your fist. But to me, he was also, because they're boys, right? Butchie and Brooks and G Woodland and Gary are all boys. And I don't know if they just got all together after the round and decided like, hey, we're
sticking to our story.
We're sticking to our story, and this is not gonna happen this way. But it looked obvious to me.
Bobby, Brick killed a man with a trident. I think he should lay low for a while.
Did you see Brooks' smart ass thing on Sunday? What he did when he was standing on 3T, kind of the short par 4, and apparently Gary Woodland was on 7 green. Did you happen to see what happened? I wasn't the only one that caught it. Somebody on social media caught it, but he hit his tee shot down there on 3, and he kind of looked over and he goes like this, and he was looking at 7. He goes like that, and I'm like, who is he fucking clowning right now? And then somebody came back on the telecast and said, oh, that was Gary Woodland on 7 green, looking at him when he hit his tee shot. And he was kind of making fun of it. Had Brooks won, that was probably going to taint that victory a little bit,
Is it? But here's the second part to it, right? Is that the live at the Masters afterwards, you got McGinley and you got Chambly, and McGinley's like, everybody does it. He's like, it's a common thing out there on the tour in his Irish accent and everything. And then you got Chambly, who cannot help himself, but all of a sudden make this all about how, it's cheating, it's wrong. What if, it's wrong for the rest of the field, and he did it just to really stick a dagger at Brooks, because McGinley even was sitting there just like, really? Like, I just said that everybody does it out there. Like, does it really matter that much? It's a dumb rule, that type of stuff. But I mean, with Chambly, he was definitely kind of
goes to another level. He's growing on me. I don't agree with everything he says, but I think he's an uber intelligent guy, right?
He is.
Nobody just does their homework that much and has all that kind of stuff, all that information available.
He just can't help himself. That's the problem. He goes too far on some of this stuff to where it's like, man, I see you just have such an axe to grind with Brooks Koepka that it's so obvious in what you're saying. So you're saying what I felt as well. It's a non-issue, non-factor. It's a rule that should just be thrown out by the wayside. Fuck that rule.
Like I said before, with us as caddies, we know what club somebody's hitting within one or two clubs, and yes, we look in bags. Nobody ever touches anybody's bag. That's a big no-no. But these guys still got to execute, right? They still have to. They still have to hit the shot. So, non-issue. Do I think that maybe they got together and had a little powwow afterward and said, hey, we're sticking to our story. We're not going to embarrass ourselves like that. It's very possible that could have happened, I would imagine.
I think so. Did you like the peace treaty by Augusta National with LIV Golf and PGA Tour where everybody just got along? Yeah. There wasn't much talk about it. I thought it was brilliant.
I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, same here.
It was awesome. I loved how all the guys, like I said, they all bro hugged each other, threw some knuckles out and that kind of stuff. And I told you my theory on that was maybe the chairman got together with the big wigs out there and said, gentlemen, we are at Augusta National for the greatest golf tournament in the world at the Masters. And this little beef that's going on right now is not going to overshadow, because it's still an invitational.
Yeah.
Right. You still have to, even if you're a past champion, I know you're exempt to play there for life, but it's still considered an invitational. And I think that trumps everything, so maybe they put the clamps to them a little bit, or maybe
they must have.
They must have. I think somebody had to say something and got everybody together. So, just more drama made it, the most watchable Masters, and God knows.
I mean, was there more fans out there than ever before? It seemed like it.
Well, I don't know. They only sell X amount of tickets, don't they? It's a certain amount of tickets every single year.
They do, but a lot of corporate leaves Saturday and Sunday. They're there Thursday, Friday for all their corporate stuff, and then they leave, and the crowds become a little bit less than what they were on Thursday and Friday with all the hospitality and everything. But this year, it seemed like even after the rain and everything on Friday and Saturday, that Sunday was freaking hopping out there.
Yeah, Sunday was hot. Well, even for Easter and that. I told you this was the first year that they gave caddie tickets. So you get people coming out of the woodwork. Hey, can you get me a ticket? Can you do that? So I was trying to make some move and get some people hooked up with some tickets and that kind of stuff. You couldn't find any tickets anyways. And I know a couple of my buddies from New York City that go down, and then I've leaned on them to get sports tickets before, and they're ticket brokers and everything like that. And I was contacting them. I'm like, hey, do you have a Friday or Saturday ticket you'd be interested in selling? And they're like, man, we haven't had anything. They went fast. So this was a very anticipated Augusta Masters, and I'm sure the next couple are probably going to be like that too, because this is the only one really that's going to bring all these LIV guys together. It's going to be tougher for that many guys to qualify for a British Open or a US Open or the PGA Championship. Let's put it that way. Definitely the PGA Championship, because you have to earn it off of. You can win past things, of course, but 1 through 125. There's a running money list from PGA Championship to PGA Championship that gets you, into that field. I know I'm rambling, but
the TV ratings, Bobby, were insane as well.
Were they?
It was absolutely nuts. It was the most watched Masters. I don't want to misquote this here, but it was there. Let's put it this way: it was a lot more than last year's Masters on Sunday of it being watched. And I think it has to do a lot with the fact that the LIV Golf guys were there, and people wanted to see, oh my gosh, is a LIV Golf person going to, or golfer going to win the Masters, and what would that have done? But I love this peace treaty. I hope it actually moves beyond Augusta National, and we can just move beyond this, because the golf world will benefit from it.
The golf world, it's better for the golf world. It's better for everybody when those 3 or 4, I'll call it a handful of LIV guys that can play in these big events. Obviously, still, it's better for everybody involved in golf. Hey, here's a little quick question for you on disappointments. Yeah. Scotty Scheffler, was that a little bit of a disappointment?
No, his putter just failed him, man.
Oh, it was horrible. I think
couldn't
Teddy he looked like he was talking shit to Teddy all week.
He was.
There's that Scotty McGinnis side that Scotty McGinnis is always talking about, that he can just snap on you. But Teddy didn't look like smiley, happy Teddy. He looked like the little puppy dog that got in trouble for pooping on the white rug. So
that all reared its ugly head, and I was remembering at the time that Scotty McGinnis interview, and I'm going, holy shit, it's happening. It's happening right now at the Masters. And I think Scotty just lost his shit because he couldn't get the starting line for his putts. Like, he couldn't make any short putts. And for him to still play as well as he did, I mean, that's pretty good.
Remember on Sunday, he made that run up to 6 on Sunday, where you're like, man, these leaders aren't doing it. And, it was just obvious that 10 to 12 was going to end up winning, and he had plenty of holes left when he got to 6. And I'm like, man, if he bunches in a few more, because you can make a bunch like Victor Hovland did, when you hit the backside over there, if you really get it going, you can make 4 or 5 quickies in a row and maybe make an eagle, throw an eagle in there. So, but then he ended up backpedaling to 3 or 4 under. How do our bets do? Our pinning?
Oh no, you are well. Hang on, can I give you credit for something?
Yeah,
before we get there.
Yes,
you fucking called it, man, with Russell Henley.
I did.
You fucking called it. how did you know this?
Okay. Well, number one, I know Russell. I know Russell really good, and I feel like he gets geared up for that tournament. He's never had a top 10, but if you looked at him on paper, he was always spread out between like 13th and 25th. Like every year and he's a phenomenal putter on those greens. One of my best friends who used to caddy with me at Pebble Beach, Todd Jeswold's no longer working for him. They separated last year. They've been together for a while. And Todd told me, he's like, man, and he's a no bullshit guy. Like he won't sugarcoat anything. He's like, man, if Russell ever wins a major, it's going to be Augusta, because he sees those greens so good. And as I was going through the field, I'm like, God, I just got to give Russell Henley some respect. I didn't know he was going to finish fourth.
Yeah, Jesus.
Because I was waiting for him to make a big backside
asshole.
Run. Yeah, I know.
You did that as a dark horse pick.
That was a hell of a
dark horse.
I know.
For all the bettors out there,
I hope somebody. You would have probably made some money if you would have listened to me this one time. I hope someone there stomped them on like a top 25 or a top 20 or a top 10, or I don't even know if they do those, because I know you do them every once in a while, and they would have made. They would have made a couple bucks. But let's go to my embarrassing pick my embarrassing pick with Gordon Sargent, and you had Sam Bennett, and
I look like a genius.
Yeah, you did.
An absolute genius out there. I mean,
I look like not as much as my Russell Henley genius, that's for sure. But I mean, I was so pumped on Gordon Sargent, and how did I disrespect, Sam Bennett? He's such a big time player.
When you picked him,
yeah,
I sat there and I go, wow, you just picked an invite into the Masters, not even somebody who earned it.
Let's be honest, man. You didn't know who the fuck Sam Bennett was before.
Yes, I did. He was a USAM winner. Come on now. I know more than that. Jeez.
I saw you scanning up down that list. You're like, and remember, I go, there's only one guy you can pick. And then you go, oh, yeah, it's Sam Bennett. So I'm just giving you
wow. Here we go. Just like actually last week, you were ripping on me the next day about the fact, I don't know why, that I thought that there was only one tournament on the PGA Tour sponsored by a company that begins with the letter V, but I kept calling it the goddamn fucking Valspar, and it was the Valero. And it's like, what's hilarious though is I went back and listened to the episode, because I'm like, how many fucking times did I say this? And I'm sitting there going, but you didn't even say anything to me. But it was almost like you knew I was saying the wrong thing, but I was looking at your face and you didn't. But you kept repeating Valero over and over again, like you knew. But I looked at your face and I'm like, you didn't fucking know.
The first time, no, because the first I wasn't doing that to rip on you during the podcast. The first time I thought I heard you say Valspar, so that's why I kept saying Valero. But I didn't know that you kept saying Valspar, and I know. For everybody that doesn't know, I called him out because I listened to this on the day after it drops. When I get back from the golf course, I like to listen to it. I like to look at it and see how goofy I look. And then when I heard it, I'm like, Jesus Christ, he just said it 3 times. We just lost 58 fucking subscribers. As my 5-year-old say, subscribers.
Well, the YouTube one I couldn't change, but I did edit. If you listen closely to the podcast version, you can hear me in post production, re-record some of that stuff to say Valero, because that was fucking embarrassing.
Yeah, but you did send me that.
PGA Tour, can you please get rid of one of those V sponsors, please, so that I can just have one? I mean, my goodness, that's confusing.
What was I other? I clipped you on a couple other bets too. I went 3 for 4.
You did. So you had Russell Henley, you had Jason Day. So McIlroy obviously being the main bet for me, just absolutely crap the bed, which was very unpredictable because he was going in there lights out. Mito Pereira versus Russell Henley. So you won that one. And then I had Cam Smith. This was actually the best match out of all of them. With Cam Smith versus Siwoo Kim, and Siwoo came alive on the final day.
Yep.
Where Cam Smith just petered. So
remember, I told you those Koreans play good, but both of my Korean buddies play good there. And I think I said, I don't know where Siwoo, he probably finished 27th or 28th, but I said something smart. I just threw a number. I go, Siwoo's, you just bank an auto top 28 for Siwoo. We were talking before we went on the air that I was texting with Sungjae. I was texting with Sungjae all week because he had the double barrel miss, and I'm no coach or anything like that, but we were sharing information because he likes to, when you caddy for him, his coach is in Korea. He doesn't talk to him hardly ever at all. He's never over here. So Sungjae does everything himself. So we were texting him about something, and he's like, oh, you watch, and I go, yeah, I watched every single shot. He goes, what do you think driver swing? And I told him, I go, it's a little bit long. It was a little bit quick. It was a little bit long for him. But if you notice, he was actually slightly laid off for Sungjae. I go, you're slightly laid off. I don't think he understood.
That's actually a good call.
Yeah, and it was, and that's what's going to happen when he got a double barrel miss. But he fucking shot the round of the day in the third round and shot 5 under, lapped a bunch of people. And I think it's funny. I talked to our guy Lance, who caddies for him now, who was on our show. Who was so nice to be on our show one week, Lance Bennett. And Lance said he said that the first 3 weeks are pretty easy, but he got in the pressure cooker with Sungjae, and he said he got. He got it a couple times, but I think Lance is so experienced now and knew what he was getting into with Sungjae that he didn't get confrontational with him, and he just let him spoke his piece and moved on and that kind of stuff. And he ended up backdooring a nice little. Listen, Sungjae will tell you I hit it like shit, and he finished 16th, right? So could Sungjae win a Masters? Probably.
Yeah, I think so. I'm with you there. So hang on a second. That means that you are 7, down to 7,000.
Yeah. No Venmo this week, motherfucker.
Bobby is down to 7,000.
That was my best performance.
It was by far. I mean, there's been a lot of weeks where it's been rough for Bobby Brown.
If I go 500, we could both go. That's your best performance.
I think you're getting the hang of this betting thing. I think you have a real future here.
Well, we got this week coming up too. So
we do. Now, hang on. Before we get away from the Masters entirely, there's 2 other hot topics that came up during the Masters. Harold Varner III at the beginning of the week was asked about his thoughts on LIV Golf players, saying that they join LIV Golf to help grow the game of golf. And I gotta say, I love the honesty from Harold Varner III. He goes, they're full of this. This was actually quoted. They're full of shit. He told Kent Babb of the Washington Post, they're growing their own pockets is the only thing they're growing. Yeah. So,
and I think he was probably talking more about like Stenson, Westwood, Poulter. They were the ones that were really big, chirping that they were growing the game and everything like that. And it's not true. They're growing their pockets. I think Phil was probably a little bit like that too, So it's not unlike Harold to call those kind of guys out. That's for sure. Harold was. I've had my opinions on how Harold's changed over the years too, and I don't see any rhyme or reason why he would change, because it's not like he ever won out here or really was. I mean, I know he won over on the DP in a pretty big event and maybe won the Australian Open one year. And those are 2 great victories, but winning over here is a totally different thing. So I didn't see any rhyme or reason. I got shelled by some guys on social media because I kind of on my burner Twitter, I kind of called them out, and they're like, oh, he's the fucking greatest guy. And I'm like, hey, but you don't even know the fuck. I don't want to say who I am, but I'm on the fucking driving range and I'm paired with this guy all the time. I know when somebody changes, but my point was at least he was honest where he's like, man, I'm going to, my son was already going to be set up, but my son's really going to be set up now. My wife, if something happens to me, my grandkids, and I get it. He grows up in a little town in Gastonia, North Carolina, and really didn't. His dad probably worked 2 or 3 jobs, as did his mom. So respect to him for calling those guys out, because there's no fucking growing the game. That just gets back to what we said in the early time of LIV. It's a fucking cash grab, right? Exactly. It was a big time cash grab for those guys at the right time. And I don't fault them for doing that. I'm going to, I've done a reverse in the last year where I was anti before, but now if, it's funny. I say to Lori all the time, you know what I mean, man, it'd be hard for me if I was in their shoes not to make the same decisions that they made. That's for sure.
I completely agree. Now, Patrick Cantlay, kudos to HV3. And then you got Patrick Cantlay, who is the hot topic right now because of Brooks Koepka talking about how John Rahm went to the bathroom 7 times in the final round, which is there a story there? 7 times to the restroom? Do we have a urinary tract infection?
Well, I think a lot of guys pee under pressure a lot, don't they? I mean, isn't when you get nervous and
if you drink pressure, a lot of water, sure.
Well, yeah, and if you got some downtime, yeah, for sure. But first of all, let me say that's Brooks talking shit again too when he's in the right. He's famous. He's famous for that. He's famous for that. But what people don't know is that Patrick Cantlay did a nice interview, I believe, with somebody today from the Golf Channel out here. I think it was at Hilton Head, honestly. And he said, he's like, hey, you guys can rip on me all you want, but the fact is when we rolled to number 2. You know what I mean? There was still a group on the tee on number 2. We waited on 15. Is Patrick slow and methodical? Yes, he is. Where is he really slow? He's really slow over his putts, isn't he? That's really where he's the slowest. So it doesn't, when you get paired with Patrick Cantlay, I don't want to say it's an honor to get paired with him, but it's fun to watch Patrick Cantlay play golf. And he's going to be slow, but he is a champion. He is a thoroughbred, and that's part of his deal. And it goes hand in hand with Patrick Cantlay. So I think that just got totally blown out of proportion. And
Koepka plays really fast. So Koepka. He plays so fast that it's like, yeah, of course.
Not everybody plays like Koepka out here, though. Not everybody's that good and can play that fast. But when he won all those other majors and that kind of stuff, it's not like he was pulling the trigger super fast at Shinnecock or at Belle Reve or anything like that. He's taking his time and making proper decisions, But I think that's Brooks talking shit. Is Patrick slow? Yes, Patrick's slow. He's not like Aaron Rye slow or anything like that, But he's always been like that. I mean, he's been out here for umpteen years and he's always been slow, and you know what you're getting into. And I'm totally going to defend him because I know that he was waiting on numerous shots too. And for Christ's sake, it's Sunday at the Masters. If you're ever going to slow down, Speed is fucking slow as shit. Isn't he? Jordan's slow as shit with all his.
He talks through a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Dustin his last few years out here when AJ started doing the aim point, you were just like, what the fuck? How long is this going to take? They're slow as shit too. It's funny. The big time players can be slow as shit and get away with it. The Aaron Ryes of the world who are slow as shit and are mid-level, players. They're the ones who take the shit. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
What about Hovland? Is Hovland a slow player?
I've never been paired with him.
Really?
So, I've never been
PGA Tour. We got to do something about that. We got to get Bobby paired with Hovland.
I root for him a little bit because his caddy I'm close with, and he lives 15 minutes away from me in Charleston, Shea Knight. So I'm always rooting for him to do some good because I've seen Shea's had some media bags in the past and got linked up with this, and now he's probably setting his family pretty good for the future as a caddy. So
that's pretty sick
for Victor for sure. And Victor seems like he's a genuine nice guy, right? Yeah. And he recently made a coaching change. He got away from Jeff Smith, and I like Jeff Smith as a person, but I've had some run-ins with him on how he treated my son when my son worked for some of his players on the Corn Ferry Tour and that kind of stuff. And he's one of those, I classified it before. He's one of those new age TrackMan teachers, right? That have never fucking walked inside the rope, much less a mini tour event with you or anything like that. They've never walked in the ropes. They were never that kind of player. And that's, Butch Harmon has the wealth of knowledge, but Butch Harmon also played on tour, right? So he gets it. He's been in those positions before. There's a new guy out there that's helping a lot of LPGA players. His name's Grant Waite. You remember Grant Waite?
Oh, I remember Grant. Yeah.
He's kind of a modified stack and tilt guy, but he's been in the arena before. I like those guys that have been in the arena and not these guys that are so intelligent, Jeff Smith and Sean Foley, but they've never walked up that 18th fairway there at the Lighthouse. They don't know what goes on inside there as far as pressure or pulses or heartbeats or nerves or anything like that. So,
well, did I ever tell you when I was in the technology side doing the body tracking and how a lot of the PGA Tour guys are actually very stack and tiltish, especially when it comes to iron play.
Well, yeah, they are with their short irons. I mean, Max Homa looks a little bit like it now with his finish with the irons. And I think Mark Black, I think that stack and tilt thing was so hot for a while with Mike and Andy, but it was too much with Mike and Andy where the driver was going.
Oh, driver's got no chance because it's the exact opposite.
We all know I worked for one of the original ones who got it going for a couple years, Eric Axley, and he was deadly with the pitching wedge, a 9-iron, an 8-iron, and a 7-iron with the stack and tilt move, but you never knew where it was going to go off the tee. So, though I'm not saying the TrackMan teachers or these stack and tilt teachers are bad by any figment of the imagination. I just think the guys.
I don't like the numbers. I like the numbers to support to what the instructor's seeing. Yeah. That's where technology comes into play and makes sense. Working just off of numbers alone, I don't agree with that at all. And there are teachers that do that.
I think Claude Harmon, Garrick Higo tells this great story. You know, I was so happy when Garrick Higo started getting back on form because I think Claude Harmon fucked him up. But Garrick Higo was telling me a story today. He was out there chipping when we were playing our practice round. He was just out there chipping because the chipping area is not very good. You can't get much done. So you have to spend a lot of time during your practice round. But we were talking about Claude and he's like, Jesus Christ. He's like, he was trying to get, and I don't even understand what that means, but he was trying to get me to swing 9 degrees out for some reason. And I've never even heard of that fucking number, 9 degrees. He was trying to get him to, I think he was trying to get him to get away from his little baby draw and hit a big cut and something about 9 degrees, which just blew me away. So, you know, a little more shit on Claude Harmon.
No, but that's exactly what it is now. Some teachers teach directly off of numbers. Some are stuck within their PGA certification box that they work within. That's another whole rant to go on. That's why I like Mike Correa so much down at Raven here in Phoenix, that he has all the technology, right? So he's got the biometrics, the body tracking. He's got Foresight. He's got TrackMan. He's got everything you could imagine there. But first and foremost, he's going to look and coach you, the individual, before, and he's going to use those numbers as supporting data. So that's why I like him so much and why I've been with him now for a couple of months at this point. But let's move past a little bit of our instructor talk. Let's get to Will Zalatoris, which is the perfect segue. When talking about instruction, I mean, what bad timing, not only for him to have to go into season-ending back surgery, and it was a microdiscectomy, but also the fact that TPI, just right before it came out, TPI and then also his doctor were just touting like all these changes that they recently made to the swing. He came into TPI and, you know, was only swinging 114 miles per hour or something like that, where, you know, he normally was up in the 120s, but by the time they got done, he was swinging 121 with a shorter driver. And then this happens. And then the doctor also was saying how, you know, their target originally was the Masters for his original back injury, and he was way ahead of schedule and everything. I mean, gosh, really.
I'm gonna go way back to Delaware to when it happened at Delaware when he threw his back out. And you remember, I was the first one to say he's done. You know what I mean? You remember that Cartwright, and I told you that I could relate to, because when I had my issues with my L4 and L5, and I probably could have had the same thing done, but there's a little bit more. You know, he can afford to have that surgery. I can't afford to have that surgery, so to speak. But, you know, it's just been bothering him. And you don't, when a young man is talented like him and has been talented for very long and has a certain golf swing and a certain move, it is, you know, that's umpteen years in the making since he was a kid, that move, engraving that move and that muscle memory into him. And you don't build a swing around an injury, do you? I mean, yeah, he had some decent finishes and that kind of stuff, but he was never the same as he was, let's say, at Memphis, you know, at Memphis. And it's just a shame that we get to miss this unbelievable talent who is the future of the PGA, one of the guys that you would call the future of the PGA Tour. You know, it's just a shame but it's a good thing, because probably had to get it done to get back to the real Will Zalatoris. You know, I feel bad. He made his caddy Joel Stock a decent amount of money there, but now Joel's not going to have much income. You know, Joel may show up and work for somebody else that may be associated with his coach Josh Gregory or something like that. You know, as while Will's down, but you kind of feel for the caddy, because he's literally probably could be missing out on close to $1 million a year now. You know. So that's
how well Will played in all of the majors too. Yeah. That's another that we're gonna miss that. We're gonna miss that jabby putting stroke from 5 feet.
Yeah, it was exciting to watch that, you know? Fuck, it's exciting.
I got sweaty palms watching him putt those 5-footers.
Whoa. Back in my cocaine days, I used to get sweaty palms. Bro. Don't bring that up. But anyways, it's a shame that he has to be off the tour. I mean, he is, you know, he's going to rest and rehab and get his shit back together. But he was literally a couple putts away from being a 2-time major champion. So
you think he can, though, after that surgery? And
well, it remains to be seen, right? it remains to be seen. Tiger had the same one. Didn't Tiger have the same surgery?
Yeah, but Tiger didn't know if he was ever going to be the same again after that surgery.
Gotcha.
And he had a couple surgeries.
Yeah, he did. He had more than a couple, that's for sure. So only time will tell on that. But he's a great young man. Comes from a great family. He's great to be around. He's great with the fans. He's just a good guy. He's just a good person in general. He's just
I'm rooting for him.
I am too, and he will be sorely missed out here for the rest of the year. That's for sure. So get healthy, Will. The PGA Tour needs you. You're great for all of us. That's for sure.
Talking about injuries, did you hear Jason Day talk about Tiger Woods and how the screw at the PGA actually came through his skin?
That just I didn't even I saw the headlines, but I didn't want to read the article because that just kind of fucking creeps me out that a metal screw can come through his foot or his leg or whatever.
Talk about sweaty palms.
Oh my God. But I know he talks about the plantar fasciitis and everything like that, but I did see that clip of him hobbling down the one fairway on Saturday where he could barely walk. And I'm kind of, we still need Tiger. I think it's coming to an end though pretty soon, right?
I was about to ask you, I'm like, does he just pack it in at this point?
I mean, I don't know if he'll ever pack it in. It's not in his DNA, but I think that maybe he's going to play 4 tournaments a year. And at some point, I mean, my big question is it going to get to the point where he can't play, where he's just going to catch everybody off guard and he's going to go, hey, I can't do it anymore? Or is it going to be a year ahead of time where he's going to go out and it's going to be an Aloha Tiger thing? Like, hey, this is my last year playing these majors, which I personally would like to see.
I would like to see that too.
Yeah.
I definitely enjoyed that with Michael Jordan. I enjoyed it with Derek Jeter. Who else had kind of that last year of this is my final year? I mean, I remember it as a Yankees fan with Derek Jeter that like that entire year, there was montage after montage for his last series with all the teams of all of his competitors. So that was a really cool thing to see. And then obviously, what his last game was going to be. Would love to see that from Tiger. And with that, he's going to move on to the Champions Tour. I mean, he's already talked about how he wants to compete out there because like you were talking about, because you and Joe LaCava are friends, that Tiger can still hit all the shots. He just can't fucking walk.
Well, funny you mentioned Joe LaCava. This is I shouldn't even be saying this, but I finished with my practice round and I had a text from Joe today. His wife and 4 other couples, or for all my Charleston creepers that live to this, go downtown this weekend if you want to see one of the most famous caddies, because he's in Charleston hanging out. And he was in typical Joe LaCava fashion. He goes, give me a good water, just simple. Going to Charleston with 3 other couples, need a watering hole that's not touristy. And I showed that to Laura and she goes, where's he going to find that? In Charleston, because it's all touristy. So
it is. That's the entire
I would like to see an announced Tiger Aloha tour a year ahead of time, where we go out and see the greatest to ever play the game, right? Yeah. The greatest to ever play the game, depending on how old you are and when you grew up and what era and have not. But
think of how much money that would bring in too, how much revenue for the PGA Tour.
Oh my God, ticket sales and everything like that would just go through the roof. And the excitement that he brings so much excitement. Nobody moves the needle like him. I don't care if it's John Rahm or Scotty Scheffler or Dustin or Brooks Koepka. Nobody moves the table like the big man, and it would just be times 10, times 10. What else you got?
Well, we got the upcoming RBC Heritage where
you're at. I don't even know who's playing. I know Rory WD though, right? I read this morning.
Did. Is that, that kind of goes against the whole designated event deal.
Yeah. Well, I think with these, let's be honest. I was talking with some caddies and some players about it today, and these designated events, these top 50 for next year and the top 70, we all are coming to the conclusion that maybe this thing's going to be like the FedEx Cup, where it's going to have to get tweaked over 2 or 3 or 4 years before they get it right. Matt, would you agree with that?
I completely agree. You can't put a designated event after the Masters. No, I know it's Harbor Town, but that was stupid.
Yeah, I know it's Harbor Town too, and this is like one of my top favorite 5 golf courses on the PGA Tour. I've had tons of luck here. I've had a few chances with players to get it done who didn't get it done. But man, the week after the Masters, a designated event. I mean, it sucks for Harbor Town. I wonder if they'll keep it that way. But that could be one that got by them a little bit, right? When they were drawing it up on the drawing board. Oh man, we didn't expect this to happen, or we didn't think about that. So it sucks that Rory's not going to be here, but we got a great field. We played 18 holes today. We're going to have a little bit of weather on Friday, a little bit of weather on Sunday. We are first off at 7 a.m. in the morning on Thursday morning. And I'm looking forward to it, man. I love this. I love this place. The greens were sneaky, kind of firm a little bit today. They weren't really bouncing, but you could just feel in your feet. There's not a lot of rough around here. They added a new tee on number 7, which didn't need. We played in a northeast wind today, and there's a new tee that makes that 220. It's you got to strike your golf ball out here, right? You got to drive it off the tee. The greens are relatively small. They're very thin. Some of them are very thin, across 12 to 15 yards across. And, it's going to be, listen, I was telling somebody today I was passing during a practice round, and I'm like, the fact is with this golf course, go post your 9 under and make a lot of money, because that's what it takes out here. You got to strike your golf ball around here, and you got to make some putts. So it's super exciting. I guess I get the first pick, right? It's always windy out here too, and it's a claustrophobic tee shots. And the funny thing is you roll through the trees and the wind's there, right? But you get all these backdrafts, and we were struggling with it a little bit today, where Troy was like, well, it feels like it's helping, and I'm like, I'm not coming off of the compass. On a couple holes, I'm like, I'm going to tell you what the compass is doing. If you feel a little bit of help and that kind of stuff. And we were laughing because I was right on a couple where he was short. I'm like, I'm not coming off the compass. And then a couple other times he hit these pretty little 6 irons where he's like, can I hit this full? And I'm like, yeah, you can hit this full. And one hop back over the green on 18, and it happened on another hole too. So it's almost like flip a coin and hope that your player has a really good handle on the wind, because it's tough to judge the wind in between the trees here. But it's funny, you get out to 18 right there, or you get on to 17, or you get in the middle of the fairway and 16, you're like, fuck, it's pumping 20, and it doesn't feel like it's moving more than 6 or 8 when you're in the tree. So I don't even know who to pick this week.
Oh, knock it off. You already got your guy.
No, I really don't know who to pick this week. I was thinking about it. I told you that for everybody, I had a long 18 holes today. My family's with me. We had to go see the Super Mario Brothers movie after.
How was it? What was your rating? You're good with movies and shit.
Are my kids asleep? It's the Super Mario Brothers movie, bro. I can't even rate it. I'm 8. My kids were like, this is the greatest movie I ever saw in my whole life. Can I get some more of those nerds? I want to pull my phone out, but you get kicked out of movie theaters now for pulling your phone out, right? Who'd have known?
Oh my God, I saw it. Speaking of which, I saw the movie Air, which you got to go see it. Phenomenal movie. That's the Michael Jordan Nike sneaker deal movie with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. It's the first movie that they've done since Good Will Hunting. And my God, is it absolutely spectacular. Except there was these 2 guys. And then you could tell that they were older gentlemen, but one had a very baritone voice that just carried throughout the movie theater. And they talked the entire fucking movie. Right. I even got to the point to where I'm like, these guys gotta somebody needs to say something. Right. Sure enough, as soon as the lights come on, you look down and it's like this 70-year-old son with his 95-year-old grandfather or father. And they're senile. The guy's got 2 hearing aids in. Right. And you're like, oh, these guys have no idea that they bothered the entire movie theater this entire time.
I'm going to have to check that out. And I'm going to give you a little tit for tat. I just saw a fantastic show on Netflix. It's called Beef. Check out the show called Beef. I think it's the #1 show on Netflix right now. And it's an Asian Korean kind of movie, but I'll give you a little, I don't want to blow anything for you, but it all starts out where a young Korean young man is pulling out of a parking lot, and then there's somebody in this white Mercedes, and there's a little road rage issue going, and the show will blow you away how it goes from there and twists off into these other things. I'm trying to buy time on who I'm.
You are. I could tell.
Okay,
we got totally.
I got it narrowed down to 2 guys. And nobody fuck with me when they say I pick the same guys all the time, but I'm either going with Kim Sung-jae or Kim Si-woo. And
which one?
I'm going to go with Sung-jae. I'm going to go with Sanjay. He had a nice weekend last weekend.
And you were giving him driver tips?
What? Well, I listen to me like I know what the fuck I'm talking about. Lori's like, "What are you looking at?" I'm like, "I'm slow mowing Sanjay's." She's like, "You're a fucking caddy, Bob," and I'm like, "You watch your mouth, bitch. You watch your mouth, bitch." So I'm gonna take Sanjay. He had a chance to win with me a few years ago, and he hit one out of bounds on number 2. We were leading all week. Siwoo tried to. Well, we lost the playoff with him in 18. So flip a coin, but I'm gonna go with Sanjay because I fixed his driver swing for him.
There you go. Bobby Brown.
A lot of drivers out here.
Everybody listening, Bobby will be giving lessons on Wednesday at the RBC Heritage. Yeah. They're going to be free 99 on the driving range if you can get past security.
It's so funny. I make these comments and Sanjay didn't even get it. Like I sent him a text. after I told him what I thought and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, that'll be $500. And he's like, what you talk about? Like,
the humor does not.
That's my going rate. Who you got?
Here you go. You ready? Cam Young. Because Cam Young played well here last year. He was in the top 10. And he's been on an absolute tear. He kind of lost it a little bit at the Masters, but then he fought back. Yeah. I mean, he was another one that was getting on Tesori there for a little while. Yeah.
That's his nature, though.
They were getting after it a bit. I mean, he's a New Yorker, man. Yeah. Come on.
Hey, listen, I just want to make this statement. When I go through and I go, oh, he had a tough day or he beat the shit out of him, I'm not talking shit on that person as a player, or am I making fun of that caddy? I'm just bringing up the point where we talked about where you brought it up months ago, where that scenario. Hey, it's at bottom of the 7th, and Manny Machado fucking goes down looking with him packed, and he beats the shit. That's just a fierce competitor, you know. So I'm not knocking him.
We're not knocking.
We have our running bet of Wyndham Clark, Cam Young, who's popped the cherry first. And it's funny, I could
get 2 here, people. If Bobby just figured out that I can get 2,000 pennies this week.
No, I'm not going to. I'm doing only one bet because I need that cushion.
No. We have the ongoing. So if Cam Young wins, I win 2,000 pennies.
I like your chances because when I finished the round, my good friend that was a great player on the Canadian tour, John Ellis, who caddies for Wyndham Clark. I go, hey, John. He knows we're struggling right now with Troy. He goes, how you doing? I go, we're hanging tough, man. We're hanging tough. He goes, that's all you can do. I go, and I told him, I go, man, I sneaky got you. I got this little, I told him, I go, one of my best buddies, I got this little side bet. You know, I told him if it's for a 20 spot, I was kind of joshing because I don't really want him to know, too many people to know about this podcast. Sorry, Matt. But I go, I got you. I bet a $20 bet that you popped your cherry before Cam Young. He goes, fuck, I like that bet. And he looks at me and goes, don't know if it's going to happen this week though, which means that, you know, maybe this is a different, not a Wyndham Clark, because he's a power player, right? It's not Clark style.
This is not his style of golf course.
You could win 2,000 pennies. I, on the other hand, can't, because according to his own caddy, he probably can't win this week. Hey, I got a question for you. Yeah. Do we got another LIV? When's LIV coming up again? When do they play?
So it is not this weekend. I think it's the 21st of April.
That's next week. Yeah, that's next week for New Orleans, our team event.
Yeah.
This is a big one for LIV. This is that Adelaide, Australia tournament. Supposedly they're getting 70,000 people a day, and it's been sold out forever. And I can't help but think myself next year, why don't they? Greg Norman runs the whole fucking thing. There's Aussie superstars in there. Why they're not playing there 3 or 4 times a year to these kind of crowds? I have no idea. But we don't want to give them any hints on being successful. Right?
It's true. It's true.
That's what I do. I need some LIV hate, man. This show ain't the same without any LIV hate.
Oh, gosh. I can't wait. But did you know what they're going to actually set up there? They're going to replicate the 16th hole at TPC Scottsdale at the Waste Management.
Where'd that come from? The PGA Tour. They're talking about how the PGA Tour is copying LIV. I think they're both taking bits and pieces of each other's tour and building their own little.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's what you do. Competition breeds better products. So that's why I've been a fan of this from the very beginning, because it's pushing the PGA Tour to be better, because it was complacent. I mean, there weren't these designated events. There weren't these strategies and ways to make it better. It was just very complacent. Now you got LIV Golf that's pushed that, and now LIV Golf has taken what some of the things that the PGA Tour has done well, which is 16th hole at Waste Management, the drunken place that it is, and that's going to now be with a bunch of Aussies.
It's just gonna be 2 good weeks for LIV. Like I said last week in the podcast, if Greg Norman would just keep his mouth shut, not saying that every play, if Koepka would have won, that all these players are going to rush the green for him. Those guys would have nobody's going to rush the fucking.
Oh my God! Somebody asked. They tried to get in touch with him through LIV Golf's media, and they're like, he's not taking any media this week. Yeah.
Like I said before, he should just shut the fuck up, because Masters Week is the greatest publicity for LIV that there was going to be, and this Australia one coming up is going to be great publicity for them, getting all those people out there. So
that it will be. Well, Bobby, have a great week, buddy.
Yeah, I got a Pro-Am tomorrow at 9:00. What are you doing?
Love that. I'm going to be working. I'm going to be grinding away on some podcasts, Bobby.
All right,
I'm going to be doing a bunch of this podcast work with our podcast, and then other podcasts and more podcasts. And guess what? It's all about podcasts, Bobby.
It is all about podcasts. All right, Matt. Thanks for having me on another one, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure. All right. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to Season 2 of the Pull Hook Golf Podcast. Make sure to hit subscribe and go to www.pullhookgolf.com for more information.